Okay. Thank you to John and Iftikhar and the whole team. It's really special for me to be here. I've been formally working for a decade now in the Thar Desert region, which spans the areas that now comprise southern Pakistan and northwestern India. And working within this cross-border contiguous desert geography, my work seeks to understand how it is that we take national borders in the region as a given, and the ways that life in borderlands, human, animal, and non-human animal life provincializes these national divides. I work across both writing and film to produce medium-specific insights about borders and the possibilities for their undoing. I'm currently writing a book about the cross-border flexibility of the religious minority form in South Asia and how it is more broadly that national majorities come to see themselves as global minorities, or what I'm calling the majoritarian work of the minority form. But today I'm going to be screening two film works. The first is a short experimental 9-minute found footage film called A Gregarious Species. And it explores how the locust is a slippery, flying boundary object, to use the term from one of our readings in the first seminar, that brings together farmers, scientists, politicians, and journalists, and other stakeholders who are trying to grapple with climate change and attendant spectacular phenomena of the swarms that were crossing the India and Pakistan border in 2019 and 2020 due to the kind of unanticipated rise in locust egg hatching because of rising temperatures and increased rains. And as you're watching, I encourage you to consider how we stretch to naturalize borders for animals, even as their movement and their flight defies them. And think about, the locust is obviously a really charged figure in both Abrahamic, Islamic kind of mythologies and also Hindu mythologies in the region. And the film uses formal techniques like glitch, frame within frame, juxtaposition, and found footage, and the interreferentiality, particularly of TikTok videos, to make a visual argument about the border as a shared space that segments and sutures the Thar Desert region. I'm also interested in this idea amongst media theorists of insect media, and thinking about how, like in the locust swarm, the word a gregarious species and the title a gregarious species is a reference to the scientific process called gregarization, whereby solitary desert locusts gregarize and become part of a kind of collective swarm that cannot be isolated. Locusts cannot be isolated. And the idea of insect media and thinking of like virality and TikTok and interreferentiality also plays with this idea of how you can't understand, for example, a single TikTok or meme in isolation. So that's going to be the first 9-minute film that you'll see, and then we'll move directly to a 15-minute excerpt of Kitne Passports, or How Many Passports, which is a feature documentary in production. Kitne Passports features observational portraits of 4 Pakistani Hindu migrant families from across the Thar, inclusive of southern Punjab, the district Rahim Yar Khan, and lower Sindh, districts of Hala, Mirpur Khas, and Umarkot. And it features 4 families from different caste backgrounds, Bhil, Meghwal, Soda, and Mali, as they are kind of navigating their futures across the Thar, and particularly in Western India and Jodhpur. And in this piece, I'm interested in how bureaucracy flattens the textures of kind of the lived plural reality of borderland life. And hence you'll see punctuation of overhead shots of flat passports juxtaposed with essayistic atmospheric portraits of each family to convey that point. And I am an anthropologist, and I bring that anthropological sensibility to my filmmaking style. So I'm really interested in kind of the mundane and everyday, and I use the camera as a kind of social actor and work only with diegetic sound. It's a very different piece than the first one that you'll see. And like a gregarious species, I kind of evoke on the screen a filmic space that seeks to kind of claim and convey a shared desert geography that, though divided by an international border, is a continuous space. So when you're watching both pieces, you may wonder, is this Pakistan? Is this India? That's kind of the point that I'm achieving through the way that I've cut together both works. And the second piece is, and I'm happy to talk more about kind of the inheritances of that. I've been working on a new project theorizing physical borders as film cuts, the way that film cuts both segment and suture shots in the moving image medium. And so the second piece is a work in progress. And so just please note that I no photos or recordings, and I have not done color correction on the second piece yet. So the exposure hasn't been adjusted. And I'm looking forward to engaging your questions and responses on both pieces afterward. Thank you.
Hello. जी हवा में उड़ रही हैं, लाहौर का इलाका है। तो अभी यहाँ पे ये टिड्डी दल जो है हमला कर रहा है। काफ़ी सारे इलाकों में ये पहले देखने को मिली हैं। पहले ये इंडिया में थी, अभी ये पाकिस्तान के काफ़ी सारे ऐसे इलाके हैं जहाँ पे ये उड़ती नज़र आ रही हैं।
तो ये मरेंगे कैसे? पता नहीं।
मरेंगे नहीं, ये खुद चले जाते हैं।
कराची घूमने आए टिड्डी दिल। ओह माय गॉड, ये कह रहे होंगे 80 लाहौर तो आया कराची घूमने।
इस वक्त भी मिट्टी में ये काम चल रहा है, मिट्टी डिस्ट्रिक्ट में चल रहा है, कुछ बनीन के हिस्से के वहाँ भी ये फील्ड टीम स्प्रे कर रही हैं। ये माइग्रेटिंग पोजीशन में है, ये एक जगह से आती है, रात को स्प्रे करती है, सुबह सवेरे जैसे ही धूप ज्यादा थोड़ी निकलती है, तेज होती है, तो ये फिर अपनी जो है वो फ्लाई करती है और दूसरी जगह।
डोसा के ऊपर हमला कर दिया इन लोगों ने।
तिल खाएगा, मूंग खाएगा, खाएगा बाजरी ग्वार। ओ तिड़ा मुल्कियो तबा करो प्यासा गिरो दारोदार। तिड़ा मुल्कियो तबा करो प्यासा गिरो दारोदार।
थरपारकर समेत सिंध के देही इलाकों में टिड्डी दल ने हमला किया तो वहां के मकीनों ने टिड्डी दल पर जवाबी वार कर दिया। मकामी अफराद टिड्डी दल को भून कर खा रहे हैं और इस पर सोशल मीडिया पर बहस भी चल रही है कि क्या टिड्डी दल को खाना हराम है या हलाल।
जी हाँ दोस्तों, ये हलाल है, आप इसे खा सकते।
Welcome to this discussion on desert locust that's been bothering our farmers and especially the agricultural fraternity all across the country now. How to actually identify and differentiate so to avoid the panic at this time. So if you could share that, please, it will be really helpful for us. How the government action needs to be concerted at this stage rather than individual farmers. Could you elaborate on that, please?
ये देखिए, ये सारे पंछी स्वार्म पे टूट पड़े हैं और जो भी स्वार्म सेटल हो चुका है, और भी देखिए कितने पंछी बैठे हुए ऑलरेडी।
I can say something in the meantime. Yeah, so a few more things that I wanted to say briefly. You know, in the first piece, I'm really looking at how the body of the locust comes to stand in both metaphorically and literally for the body of the foreigner. And this has a wide history. I've been talking here to colleagues who work in China, you know, hearing that the locust there is also a way to refer to foreigners. In Sindh, it's also a way to refer to foreigners. And then the two pieces kind of speak to each other in that the second one, as an anthropologist, I'm interested in offering a kind of textured, ethnographic, everyday alternative to the hostility of the kind of meta-level discourse between India and Pakistan. And then, you know, you may, I think in the first piece, it's interesting how even there's two things happening, like nationalism becomes an idiom to address farmer insecurity. And all of the videos I sourced from farmers on the border that I've been working with, some of the Pakistani migrants that I've been working with for the last decades also do agricultural work. So when the locusts were flying between the border, they were also sharing videos with each other. And it was very interesting to me, the video that you see of the locust being called a foreigner and being beheaded was actually shared on a group of Hindu migrants from Pakistan. So that's another way that, you know, the two pieces sort of speak to each other and cross over, at least from the production side of things. And in the first piece, the piece ends with, you know, all of the frames and the kind of cacophony So I'm interested too in the cacophony of nationalism, and how the cacophony of jingoism sort of drowns out the other, shared experiences that are happening between farmers on both sides of the border. And it's interesting that even amidst a shared experience of climate change and this shared biological, ecological phenomenon, there's both kind of the hardening of borders happening, but also the undoing of them. And finally, I'll just say that you may be wondering, what does the second piece have to do with climate change? But the title of this session is Human and Animal Ecologies, and absolutely climate change also affects people's abilities to have livelihoods in the Thar, which, deserts are not empty. Deserts are, we consider them as arid, but they can have fertile regions. And the way that we've been learning about the Ravi from Abu Azhar and others, similar drawing has happened and extraction has happened with the Sindhu and the Indus River, making it difficult for people to continue life there and having to move across the border. So